Hi everyone, it's Desiree, and I'm here to show you a different way to use your watercolors. Now, the products that I'm going to use are by ARTEZA, and it's their 60 color set of tubes, watercolors. Now, ARTEZA had reached out to me and asked if I would want to just use these, play with them, work with them, and then show you all what I found with the product. And of course I said yes. So with these products, a little bit about them. There are 60 tubes. It gives you the light fastness, the transparency, and the pigment number when it comes to each of the colors. Now, what you do have to take notice is you can see the transparency symbols, Many of these watercolors are opaque. I mean, they have a lot of white base to them. All right. So these are not, and again, this is my opinion, these are not going to work like the watercolors that we see. Okay. Whether they're the Daniel Smiths, like where I have the QORs or the Mission Golds. They're watercolors, but they do act very differently. Does that mean that you can't use them? Absolutely not. You can use them. So I did a lot of work with them. You know me, if you see my previous videos, I like to see what I can do with something and keep my fingers crossed it doesn't blow up. So this is how they're packaged. They're nice sized tubes. They will last you for an extremely long time. So the top half that says pan 1 is actually sitting on the left side of the screen, and then the pan 2 is sitting on the right. I do like to keep my watercolors in the Ranger ink palettes. Kelly Latavola showed me that. And these are not good for that. These will crack when they dry. You can reactivate them with water, but they will crack. So I did put them in the pans, and when I opened it, they went all over the place. So, yeah. That's the watercolor paper that I'm going to use throughout this. It's the ARTEZA's. It is their 32 count pad, the premium. And I like that watercolor. I think it's got a great tooth. I love it for colored pencils. But I do enjoy it. I like the thickness of it. And I do like the tooth that it has. So I grabbed 3. I grabbed a yellow, I grabbed a red, and I grabbed a blue. I want to see how they blend. I want to see how they mix. I want to see how they merge together. I'm going to look at wet on wet techniques. I'm going to look at dry on wet techniques. So this is what I'm going to show you here. Now, one of the things that I did find, they did blend very well. You can see the yellow and the red. That's the dry on wet, meaning the paper was dry. I brought wet paint to it. You can see, though, they're not merging. They're really not crossing over. You can see when I did the wet on wet with the blue and the red is staying to itself. The blue kind of did come out a little bit. Again, I'm getting beautiful blends between the blue and the yellow. I got a beautiful green. With the red and the blue, I got a beautiful purple. These are the flowers that I make. You're going to see these a lot. This is my level of watercolor. I am not a watercolorist. I am a watercolorist for card making. Yeah, there's a difference. Or at least I think. So, I mean, if you're looking for a set and if you are a true watercolorist, you can get these. I think they're very good, but there are many of them that do have what I'm referring to as a chalk base. They're very chalky-like. But I tend to like that too. So, again, these are the flowers. These are the leaves that I make. When it comes to this, I then wanted to play, okay, how do they do making a base layer? And then adding some water. Will this blend out? Does it hold the line? That's what I'm checking at towards the bottom of the screen. And I do apologize. I'm kind of a little bit far there for the screen. Now, these are all still wet. Again, I'm going to let these dry, I will show you what they look like dry. I did not bring a heat gun to these testers, so to speak. You can see I'm making some leaves. I'm wiggling. That's how I make leaves sometimes. So love the mixing. I like the way they mix together. Making my flowers, I like the way it stays dark in the center. So I like that effect too. Here I am again. I'm just going to go. And again, I just make a bunch of C's and just keep on going in a circle. There's no rhyme. I will come in with that same color and just touch the center where it's still wet. Again, it does bleed out, but not like your typical watercolors. I've shown that I use the Hero Arts. I love their liquid watercolors. And you can tell, you know, in a couple videos that I've done with them, I mean, the pigment really spreads. I love watching it. You can get mesmerized by it. These are not doing that too much. Now, the colors I used are a lemon yellow, an ultramarine blue, and I think the red was a crimson. So this is what they look like. Now, those are the two flowers that dried. I mean, a beautiful, beautiful shades of green that I got. Again, just mixing yellow and blue. They're really the only three colors that you need. You can get beautiful colors from every color from those three colors. So you can see the blue and the red, they just didn't mix. They just did not merge together. So I'm going to play again, making some purples, making some reds, just having fun. The palette that I'm using comes from Altenew. They have two of them out. This is the smaller of the two. I like them. They're a thick plastic, and they're easy to clean. So usually if I'm needing a palette where I'm mixing colors, these are the ones that I'm usually reaching for. So I'm just cleaning my brush and I'm kind of thinking, all right, what do I want to do? So I'm going to go into the bluish purple and I'm just going to do my flowers. And again, it's just a bunch of almost like half circles or C's. They're small in the center. And then I just keep adding to it. And then I'm going to use the same color and dot in the center. I do apologize. I did make one of these roses, you know, using the coral color that I have in the background there above the red and then adding some red. It did not blend. Unfortunately, though, I could not find the card. So let's not talk about too much of that because I can't show you that. What I will show you are these three flowers that I'm going to continue to make here. These have more of a red tone to them, but they're still purple. And then I'm going to come in with some more green. Again, just mixing my yellow and my blue. The more blue that I put, the more it's going to be a bluish green, so to speak. And I do like that color. So when I make my leaves, I press, I pull up, and then I'll either go off to the side or I'll come straight up to get that point. I can always work at the point. If I want it to be more detail, I'm going to put some more colors at the base and at the top so that it can bleed through because they are still wet, just to add some shading. I did wait until my flowers were dry. I did not want the green to bleed all the way into the flower. Now that would have happened. And I didn't want that to happen. You can see in the one section it started to. But because I dried it, I was able to stop that. So just one style. I'm going to grab another cardstock just to continue to play with these. I do enjoy making these flowers. I think they're very easy. They're very quick. And they're very simple. Again, they're just C's. And then again, I'm going to come in. Now this time I am using the darker of the shades to see what that looks like and how that blends. Your paper does need to be wet for these to move. If the paper is not wet, these paints will not move. So just something to think about. You can see how those dark spots, they literally ended. And again, that's probably because the paper as well, because your paper, it's not staying wet. It's not staying damp. The paper does absorb the water very well. So here I'm just going to add some of my leaves on each side, just to try to center that, and I'm going to set that aside to dry as well. Again, I'm looking at what's going to blend. You can see that these two areas are wet, but just by me putting a wet paintbrush with clear water going through it, it kept these two areas separate. Usually that water is a bridge where they'll merge. These are almost dry. You can tell they're still not coming together. They pretty much look the same. So these act differently. They are watercolors, but again, they're not the traditional. But again, if you are a watercolorist, yes, you can use these. These are on a student grade level. But these are the colors that I've chosen to use. I just had them there a moment ago. Some peaches, some roses, burgundies, and some olive greens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp my image. Now the ink that I'm using is by Desiree K, and it's one of her new amalgams in Whisper. So I want to do some no-line watercoloring, and I'm going to call it that. So I'm going to mask my first Magnolia. This set is by Pretty Pink Posh, and I'm going just to mask that one section. I'm not going to show all of this because I do want to focus on the watercoloring and the painting and how I worked with it, and how I found to have joy with this product. So I just continue to stamp and mask and just fill in the bottom of this piece of watercolor paper. So again, here's my palette. So you can see I go from a peach to a pink to a burgundy. And then my greens, I have a light green, a mid green, and then I'm actually pulled in a little bit of blue if I used it. I wasn't sure if I was going to. These tubes are extremely large in size. They're not the typical small ones, so they will last you for some time. Just remember, when you put them in a palette, they will crack. So whatever palette you're putting them in, make sure the lid is close to the top so that you don't lose your pieces. I will find that I will use these out of the tube. I'll just put a little bit out, you know, and again, a dab will do you. They do stretch when you add water. That's the purpose. But I don't believe I'm going to put these in a palette or store them. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that light peach color and I'm painting every other petal. I don't want to paint next to them. I do want each of the petals to be unique. Now, what I do like about these watercolors is the base layer that they give. The base layer that is put down from these, I think, is fantastic. I enjoy that because to me, there's a lot I can do with that. So I did pull in my heat tool to dry some of these. Again, I didn't want to bore you with that part, but I did want you to know that yes, I did use my Ranger heat tool to dry these pieces. So now I'm going to fill in with the other petals because the other ones are dry. I wanted that line to stay definite. I didn't want them to cross over, just in case they did. So I'm going to continue to fill these areas in. Same thing with the green. I'm using the lighter shade and I'm putting down a base coat. Now that one leaf looks darker. I'm okay with that. I just wanted to get that base color. I'm going to clean these two areas up because I will get that all over my card. Yes. So you can see I wiped away a section, and that's okay. I kind of removed that part that wasn't dry yet. It's okay. I'm going to be able to cover this. I'm not going to stress over that. But I didn't want to put more paint on it to get it smoother because then it would have been darker. So I just needed to say, okay, let it go, and let's continue on. So I'm going to start with the leaves. This layer is dry, but what I'm coming in with is the medium shade of green here. And I'm adding some veins. I'm adding the shading. to these sections. So I'm just adding strokes coming up through that leaf. They're close. It's almost going to make it look like a solid leaf. Now I know when it comes to magnolias, the leaves are very dark. They're a very dark green. But I didn't want to go that dark because the colors that I was using for the flowers themselves were very light. If I was making these white, then I probably would have gone with a darker leaf. But I wanted to stay light. So now that I have those things, those lines, and you can tell because it's not staying wet, I'm holding on to those lines that I've made. I'm going to do the same thing to each of the magnolia petals. I'm going to add each of these petals coming from the center some lines. And again, I'm using this as shading. I'm using this as depth for the flower, for the center. And then this way, this will give it a shape. But you can tell, I'm not looking for the colors to blend together. I'm actually, in a way, glazing. Okay, if you know, for those of you that are truly watercolorists, glazing is when you just put layer on top of layer when it comes to watercolors. And that's what I'm doing with these. I'm actually glazing with them. And I really like the look. I like the white pigment that's in these colors that give it a soft feel, a soft creamy feel. I do enjoy that as well. So again, they're not your typical watercolors, you know, what we're used to seeing, the Daniel Smiths, the Missions. They're not your typical watercolors. It doesn't mean you can't use them that way. I just found I enjoyed using them this way. I like the look that I got. I like the effect that I got. In some cases, yes, on those watercolors that are more transparent, they will blend better. They will merge better on a damp surface on your watercolor paper. Absolutely. But the majority of this set, I'm going to say close to 80 to 85% of this set is not transparent. So you have more of that white undertone, that white base, what I'll call it, almost like a chalk base. But again, I kind of like that. I can layer with it. The colors stay on top. So I had fun with that. With the darker, I'm putting the colors down. I just threw that brush. I thought it went right on top of my picture. It did not. We're fine. But even if it did, we would have let it go. And we would have kept on going. So with the darkest one, I really watered it down. I wanted this to be very light, very faint, and just go up to those lines just to give it some depth and come in under those petals that are turned forward. So those are our magnolias. I like to change the color of flowers. I usually always go with the colors that I like. You can see as they dried on that palette, they started to crack. So again, whatever palette you put it in, just be aware of that. It will crack. You can see that I can revive these. I did let that dry overnight when it came to that palette. Yes, everything stayed on my table that way. So here are those other flowers. Now that one I flipped upside down while obviously it was still wet, but I still like the look of it. So there's no reason to get rid of it. Again, it's handmade. And these are the 3 cards that I created from the panels from working with these paints. So I just pulled out some sentiments from my stash. I dug in there. I think 2 of these, wishing you a lifetime of love and have a blooming good birthday. They're coming from a Desiree K set. And then the missing you more each day is from of my Simon Says many messages. I'll have them linked down below. So these are now fully dry. You can tell the red did kind of come out a little bit, but not much. These they stayed apart. I like that blend, that gradient with the blue. I do like that. I think I'm fine with that. And here are some other ideas. So with the base, this is where my idea came from as I was playing. I really like the base that these watercolors give, because you can do a lot. So with the darker maroon, that's the glazing that I just did. But you see that shimmer? What I used were my watercolor pencils by Arteza, put it in the corners, and drug it out with my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. With the green leaves, the one that was on the left with that base of watercolor, I came in with just my colored pencils and added shading. So I really liked those. So if somebody's interested to see the base with the colored pencils or the base with the watercolor pencils using a Spectrum Noir pen or a glitter pen, just let me know. I was really having a lot of fun with that. And I think it could give you some really great results. If you are interested to see that, let me know, and maybe we'll be able to put a video together. But I do hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you an idea of the Arteza 62 color, or the 60 tube color set of their watercolors. I like them. I like them for different reasons. Would I use these to paint a landscape? You could. I would not be able to make it work. A true watercolorist absolutely would be able to make it work. So just keep that in mind. I do think that these are great for the card maker and any other level of crafter when it comes to paper. So if you have any questions, leave those down below. And as always, all the products that I used will also be linked down below as well. I want to thank you so much for stopping by and watching today's video. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so that you know when the next video comes out. I hope everyone's having a great day. Remember, take care. But remember what's most important for me? Always be creative.